Not literally, but that's what my brain insisted as my fingers clenched fabric I didn't own. Smooth. Cool. Slipping through my hands like water. My heart slammed once, twice, hard enough to hurt. This isn't my bed, I thought. But it was. Same cracked ceiling. Same buzzing fan. Same stupid alarm blinking 7:12 a.m. like nothing in the universe had gone wrong. I sat up and froze. Something heavy slid across my shoulder. Hair. Long, glossy hair spilled forward, catching the morning light like spun gold. My breath hitched. I lifted one shaking hand and watched slender fingers move with me, nails neat and pale, wrist delicate in a way that made my stomach twist. No, 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 I whispered. My voice wasn't mine. It wasn't fake. It wasn't exaggerated. It was soft, natural, like it had always lived in my throat and I just never heard it before. I stumbled out of bed and nearly fell, balance thrown off by a body that curved where it never had. The mirror across the room pulled me toward it like a magnet I wanted to resist. But I looked. And the world cracked. A girl stared back at me. Not a costume. Not makeup slapped on for a joke. A real, breathing, impossibly beautiful girl. Big eyes wide with fear. Lips trembling. Cheeks flushed pink with panic. A satin nightdress hugged a waist that dipped inward, breasts rising and falling too fast, too real. I touched my face. He did too. That's when it hit me harder than the shock. His grin at the office party last night. The way everyone laughed when he handed me that tiny crystal bottle. Come on, man. It's just a prank. Fell, sweet foil. Magic, I'd thought sarcastically before drinking it. I slid down the wall, knees to my chest, dress pooling around me like a mockery of royalty. This isn't funny, I whispered, tears blurring the mirror. You went too far. But somewhere beneath the terror, beneath the humiliation, a dangerous thought surfaced. Why does this feel so real? Why does it feel like the mirror is finally telling the truth? I spent almost an hour just standing in front of my closet. Nothing fit. My jeans stopped halfway up my thighs. The button-up strained awkwardly across my chest, the fabric pulling in a way that made my face burn even though I was alone. Every familiar piece of clothing felt like proof that yesterday's life no longer belonged to me. My hands trembled as I shoved them aside. Think, I muttered. Just think. At the very back of the closet hung an old long coat I'd bought years ago and never worn. I slipped it on, relief washing over me as it hid most of my shape, the heavy fabric grounding me just enough to breathe. I tied my hair back clumsily, hoping it would make me feel less exposed. It didn't. The moment I stepped outside my apartment, the air felt different, sharper, heavier, like the world was watching. Every sound echoed too loudly. Every passing footstep made my shoulders tense. When the elevator doors opened, my heart nearly leapt out of my chest. A woman stepped inside. She glanced at me, smiled politely, and looked back at her phone. That was it. No shock. No laughter. No double take. I stood there, frozen, as the elevator descended. My reflection in the metal doors showed a nervous girl clutching her coat like armor. I barely recognized the fear in her eyes, because it wasn't the same fear I'd lived with before. This was deeper. More vulnerable. Outside, the city felt huge. Cars passed. People walked by. Conversations floated around me like nothing had changed, like the universe hadn't flipped me inside out overnight. I felt exposed in a way I never had before, suddenly aware of my posture, my steps, the sway of my hips no matter how hard I tried to control it. Was I walking wrong? Too stiff? Too careful? My phone buzzed. Work. 9 a.m. Don't be late. I almost turned back. Almost. But something stubborn, something defiant, pushed me forward. The office lobby was my breaking point. The security guard looked up, then smiled. Morning. Morning, I replied automatically. Again that softer voice. He didn't question it. Just waved me through. My pulse thundered in my ears as I crossed the floor. Every step felt like a test I hadn't studied for. I could feel eyes on me now, not hostile, just curious. Whispers brushed past me like static. Is she new? Did you see her hair? She works here. I kept my head down until I reached my desk. That's when I heard him. Well, I'll be damned. Adrian's voice. Lazy. Mused. I closed my eyes for half a second, then turned. He leaned against a cubicle wall, arms crossed, grin slowly spreading like he was savoring a private joke. His eyes dragged over me, not subtle, not kind. Looks like the spell didn't wear off, he said. My hands curled into fists. You did this. He shrugged. Relax. It was supposed to last a few hours. Maybe a day. Guess you're special. People nearby pretended not to listen. Pretended not to stare. My face burned. Fix it, I hissed, stepping closer. You think this is funny? I can't even. Can't what? He interrupted softly. Go back. That hit harder than I expected. I swallowed. I'm not joking, Adrian. He leaned in, lowering his voice. Honestly, you look better this way. Always thought you were wasting potential. Something twisted in my chest. Anger, shame, confusion all tangled together. I'm going home, I said louder now. Tell HR whatever you want. He laughed under his breath. Suit yourself, princess. That word followed me all the way out of the building. Princess. I expected to cry once I reached my apartment. I didn't. Instead, I stood in the silence, coat slipping from my shoulders, staring at my reflection again. The girl in the mirror looked shaken, but she also looked alive. More expressive. More real than I remembered being. I survived, I whispered. I had walked into the world as her. And the world hadn't rejected me. That scared me more than the magic ever could. The door clicked shut behind me and the silence hit harder than any insult ever had. No whispers. No stares. No Adrian. Just me and her. I leaned my back against the door, slid down until I was sitting on the floor and finally let my lungs empty. My whole body was shaking now, the adrenaline wearing off and leaving something raw behind. I'm losing my mind, I whispered. But the apartment looked the same. Felt the same. The magic hadn't faded. My hands were still small. My heartbeat still rose and fell beneath a chest that wasn't supposed to exist. Slowly I stood. The mirror across the room waited. This time I didn't rush it. I walked toward it like it might disappear if I moved too fast. Each step felt heavier, more deliberate, as if I was crossing a line I couldn't uncross. Up close, the details were impossible to ignore. The softness of my skin. The way my collarbones curved. The faint scent, something floral, unfamiliar, clinging to me no matter how many times I breathed in. I raised a hand and touched my cheek again, but now, I didn't flinch. Is this really me? I asked the reflection. She looked scared. But she also looked curious. I slipped the coat off my shoulders and let it fall to the floor. The night dress shimmered softly under the light, clinging in places that made my stomach tighten with embarrassment. Instinctively I crossed my arms, then stopped. Why am I hiding? There's no one here. My arms lowered slowly. I turned sideways, then all the way around, studying myself like I was trying to memorize someone else's face. Every movement felt different. Not wrong. Just unfamiliar. Like learning a new language using the same thoughts. I laughed suddenly, short, breathless. This is insane, I said. My voice echoed back, light and emotional, and it sent a shiver down my spine. The vanity caught my eye. I hadn't noticed it before. Not really. A small desk near the window, dusty, almost forgotten. The stool creaked as I sat, heart pounding like I was about to commit a crime. The drawer opened easily. Inside, makeup, lipstick, brushes, a compact mirror, little glass bottles catching the light. I hesitated, fingers hovering just above them, guilt and excitement wrestling in my chest. I shouldn't want this. So why do I? I picked up the lipstick. The cap twisted open with a soft click that sounded way too loud in the quiet room. My hand shook as I brought it closer, my reflection watching me just as nervously. Just once, I murmured. Just to see. The first swipe was messy. Crooked. I wiped it off with my thumb, heart racing. Tried again, slower this time. More careful. When I leaned back, my breath caught. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't fake. Guess, fit. I touched my lips, eyes wide, then smiled before I could stop myself. The smile felt different too, brighter. Like it reached places my old one never had. I experimented next with my hair, letting it fall loose, then gathering it back, watching how each change subtly shifted who I looked like. Who I felt like. I stood up and took a step. Then another. Walking felt strange. My balance, my center of gravity, but not impossible. I tried again, adjusting naturally without thinking. When I turned, the dress swayed gently around my legs and something warm spread through my chest. Pride. Oh. Recognition. I pressed my palms to the mirror, forehead resting against the glass. I don't understand this, I whispered. But I don't hate it. That realization scared me more than waking up like this ever had. Because if this wasn't just a prank, if this wasn't just magic, then what did that say about me? The thought lingered long after I stepped away, heart still racing, reflection burned into my mind. That night, sleep didn't come easily. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt myself, every unfamiliar curve, every subtle shift in weight, every soft brush of hair against my neck. It was like my body was quietly reminding me I'm still here. You can't pretend I'm not. So I stopped pretending. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the curtains, warm and gentle, and for a few precious seconds I forgot everything. Then I stretched and the truth returned all at once. The way my back arched differently. The light pressure against my chest. The softness where there had once been angles. Instead of panic, something else surfaced. Curiosity. I sat up slowly, heart beating faster. Not from fear but anticipation. The apartment was still quiet. No witnesses. No expectations. Perfect. I padded toward the closet barefoot, each step soft against the floor. Yesterday's frustration returned when I saw my old clothes again, but this time it didn't sting the same way. It felt distant. Like looking at relics from another life. I pulled out a loose shirt and slipped it over my head. It draped differently now, clinging just enough to hint at what lay beneath. I turned side to side, watching how fabric obeyed rules I was only just learning. Then I did something I hadn't planned. I ordered clothes. Online. Quickly. My hands hovered over the keyboard, pulse racing, every click feeling both forbidden and thrilling. Simple things, nothing dramatic. A soft sweater. Leggings. A skirt I told myself was just to see how it feels. When the confirmation email arrived, my stomach fluttered. What am I doing? The answer came quietly. Bernie. While I waited, I practiced. My voice first. I stood in front of the mirror and spoke, then stopped, then tried again. Different pitches. Different rhythms. Not forcing it, just listening. Feeling where the sound resonated. Some attempts made me cringe. Others made my heart jump. There. That one. I smiled despite myself. Movement came next. I walked the length of the apartment, aware now of my shoulders, my hips, my balance. At first, I overthought every step, stiff and awkward. Then I let go. And my body corrected itself. My steps softened. My posture shifted. Not exaggerated, just natural. Like muscles remembering something my mind had forgotten. I laughed out loud. You've got to be kidding me, I said, breathless. But the mirror didn't laugh back. She just looked relieved. When the package arrived later that afternoon, my hands shook opening it. The cardboard tore easily, and the clothes spilled out like secrets finally allowed into the open. I picked up the skirt last. Light. Flowing. Harmless. I hesitated only a second before stepping into it. The fabric settled around my waist like it belonged there. I turned slowly, watching it move with me, catching the light, whispering against my legs. My throat tightened, not with shame but with something dangerously close to joy. I tried the sweater next, soft against my skin, sleeves a little long. I pushed them up, catching my reflection mid-motion. And there was. Not a joke. Not a disguise. Not a victim of a prank. Just me. I sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded in my lap, breathing hard. My mind raced with questions I wasn't ready to answer. What if this doesn't go away? What if I don't want it to? The fear was still there, but it was changing. Losing its teeth. As evening fell, I practiced one last thing. Confidence. I stood tall. Met my own gaze. Let the smile come naturally. I can do this, I whispered. And for the first time since the prank, I believed it. I stood by the door for a long time. Hand on the handle. Heart in my throat. Breath shallow. The outfit wasn't dramatic, on purpose. The soft sweater, the skirt that moved when I breathed, simple flats I'd ordered along with the clothes. My hair was brushed, loose but controlled. Just enough makeup to feel intentional, not like I was hiding. Still, my reflection stared back at me like it was asking a question. Are you ready to be seen? I don't have to go far, I whispered, mostly to calm myself. Just around the block. 5 minutes. I opened the door. The hallway felt different than before. Brighter somehow. Or maybe that was just my nerves sharpening everything. My steps echoed softly as I walked, and with every step my body adjusted. Shoulders relaxed. Arms swung naturally. I wasn't performing anymore. I was just moving. Outside, the late afternoon sun brushed my skin warm and real. The city hummed like it always did, cars, voices, distant music. Life unapologetically continuing. And I was part of it. A man passed by and nodded. A woman smiled at me without thinking twice. No one laughed. No one pointed. No one knew there was anything unusual happening at all. My chest tightened, not with fear this time but with something fragile and beautiful. Relief. I walked to a small cafe on the corner, the same one I'd passed 100 times and never entered. The bell above the door chimed softly as I stepped inside. "Hi there," the barista said cheerful. "What can I get you?" My mouth went dry. This was it. The moment where my voice would betray me. Where everything would collapse. I started, then stopped. "Breathe." "Like," I said again calmly. "Vanilla, please." She smiled. "Name." Pause. "Just a second." Then, "Lena." The name slipped out easily. Like it had been waiting. When she called it out a few minutes later, "Vanilla latte for Lena." Something inside me clicked into place. I stood, accepted the cup, thanked her. My hands were steady. I sat by the window watching the street, sipping slowly. Each small interaction stacked on top of the last, building something solid inside me. Confidence, yes, but also permission. I belonged here. When I left the cafe, I didn't rush home. I walked. Through a bookstore where I lingered in front of mirrors without flinching. Past a group of teenagers who barely noticed me. Into a park where I sat on a bench and let the breeze play with my hair. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for the magic to end. I was afraid of it ending. As dusk settled, my phone buzzed. A message. "Adrian, you're really leaning into this, huh?" I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. My heart sped up, but not like before. I typed back. "Me, you don't get to decide who I am." The reply took a moment. Then came nothing. I slipped my phone into my bag, lifted my chin and stood. The city lights flickered on around me, and in their glow, I felt something unmistakable. Power. Not loud. Not aggressive. Quiet. Certain. The message from Adrian stayed with me longer than I wanted to admit. Not because it scared me, but because it reminded me that this story wasn't finished yet. Monday morning came faster than I expected. I stood in front of the mirror again, but this time the girl looking back didn't flinch. She adjusted her blouse, smoothed her skirt, met her own eyes with a steadiness that would have been impossible just days ago. Still, work was different. This wasn't a cafe. This wasn't a park full of strangers who didn't know my past. This was the place where he had power. I took a deep breath and stepped inside the building. The lobby buzzed with its usual noise, but the moment I walked through the doors, the energy shifted. Heads turned. Conversations dipped. Not dramatically, just enough to notice. I felt it in my spine. I kept walking. Each step felt like a statement. Not defiant. Not loud. Just honest. At my desk, I set my bag down carefully, fingers only trembling a little. A coworker from accounting passed by and smiled. "Love your sweater," she said casually. "Thank you," I replied. 2 simple words, but they grounded me like nothing else. Then I heard clapping. Slow. Deliberate. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. "Well," Adrian said, loud enough for nearby desks to hear, "if this isn't commitment." I turned. He stood there with that familiar smirk, but something about it was off. Tighter. Less confident. His eyes flicked over me like he was trying to solve a puzzle that refused to fit together. "You really going to keep this up?" he asked. "Everyone knows this isn't real." A small circle of coworkers had gone quiet. Not staring outright, but listening. My heart pounded. This was it. Every instinct screamed at me to retreat. To laugh it off. To promise I'd be normal again soon. That I'd go back into the shape everyone expected. Instead, I stood straighter. "What part isn't real?" I asked calmly. Adrian blinked. "You know what I mean." "No," I said. "I don't." He scoffed. "This." He gestured vaguely at me. "It's a prank. A spell. A joke that went too far." I took a step closer, lowering my voice, not out of fear but control. "You didn't make me," I said. "You just removed something I was hiding behind." The words surprised even me. A murmur rippled through the room. Adrian's smile finally cracked. "You're serious?" Yes. You're actually choosing this? I looked around. The office, the people, the place where I'd spent years shrinking myself to avoid attention. To avoid ridicule. To survive. I'm choosing myself, I said. His face hardened. You know I can end it, right? Silence fell. My chest tightened not because I didn't know the risk but because I did. I imagined waking up tomorrow the way I used to be. Familiar. Safe. Invisible. The thought felt like grief. Go ahead, I said quietly. That stopped him. What? If you can reverse it, I repeated, steady as stone, do it. He stared at me, searching for hesitation. He didn't find any. After a long moment he laughed. Short, humorless. You think this makes you brave? I met his eyes. No. I think hiding made me small. HR arrived not long after, drawn by the tension, the raised voices. Questions were asked. Explanations demanded. Adrian's version sounded weaker the more he talked, tangled in jokes that no longer landed. I didn't need to say much. I just told the truth. When it was over, when Adrian stormed out and the office slowly returned to its rhythm, I sat down at my desk, hands shaking, not from fear but release. I had chosen. And nothing felt heavier, or freer, than that. The office didn't magically become perfect after that. But it changed. So did I. For the first few minutes after Adrian left, no one spoke to me. Not because they were judging, but because they didn't know how. I could feel it in the air. Curiosity mixed with respect, uncertainty brushing up against something new. Then Maya from HR walked over and sat on the edge of my desk. You okay? She asked softly. I nodded, surprised that my eyes burned anyway. Yeah. I think, yeah. She smiled, not the polite, professional one but something warmer. If anyone gives you trouble, you come straight to me. Just like that. No lecture. No conditions. No when this spell ends. After she walked away, I sat there for a long time, staring at my screen without seeing it. My body was buzzing, not with anxiety but with the aftermath of adrenaline finally draining away. I'd stood my ground. Me. The same person who used to avoid eye contact. Who used to laugh along when jokes cut a little too close. Who used to make himself smaller so others could feel bigger. At lunch, something unexpected happened. Hey, do you want to sit with us? I looked up to see two coworkers standing awkwardly nearby. People I'd worked with for years but never really known. Sure, I said. The word came easily. We talked about nothing important at first. Work deadlines, a show one of them was binge-watching, the new cafe down the street. But beneath the normalcy, something real was happening. They weren't humoring me. They were including me. Later that evening as I walked home, the city lights reflected in shop windows, offering me glimpse after glimpse of myself. And for once I didn't rush past them. I stopped. In the glass I saw a woman standing tall, shoulders back, expression calm and confident. Someone who had been tested, and chosen herself anyway. Princess. The word echoed in my mind, stripped of mockery now. A princess isn't delicate because she's weak. She's careful because she knows her worth. At home I kicked off my shoes and sank onto the couch, exhaustion finally catching up with me. My phone buzzed. Messages one after another. Maya, proud of you today. A coworker. You were amazing in there. An unknown number. Hey. It's okay if this is weird but I'm glad you're here. I pressed my phone to my chest, breathing slowly. For the first time I wasn't alone in this. That night I dressed carefully, not to hide, not to prove anything, but because I wanted to. A soft dress. Minimal makeup. Hair loose. Comfortable. I stood on the balcony, letting cool air brush my skin, city humming below. I didn't lose myself, I whispered into the night. I found her. The fear hadn't vanished completely. I knew it wouldn't. There would be hard days ahead. Questions, stares, moments of doubt. But fear no longer owned me. I had something stronger now. Choice. And as I turned back inside, closing the door behind me, I realized something important. The prank didn't make me a princess. Courage did. If you're listening to this, if you're still here with me, then let me tell you something I wish someone had told me before all of this began. I thought becoming a princess meant losing myself. I thought it meant humiliation. Weakness. Being turned into someone else's joke. That's what fear told me. But fear lies. The night everything finally settled, I stood in front of the mirror one last time. Not to analyze, not to practice, not to brace myself for the world. Just to look. Really look. I saw someone who had been afraid for a long time. Someone who had learned to survive by shrinking, by blending in, by laughing at insults before they could hurt. Someone who had spent years building a cage and calling it safety. And then I saw her. Not perfect. Not fearless. But standing. The crown everyone joked about? It wasn't gold. It wasn't magic. It was choice. The choice to stop apologizing for existing. The choice to stop waiting for permission. The choice to look at the parts of myself I'd buried and say, you're allowed to breathe now. Adrian thought he won. He thought power came from control. Turning someone into a spectacle, forcing change onto them and laughing from a distance. But the joke only works if you disappear afterward. I didn't. I stayed. I learned how my laughter sounded when it wasn't forced. I learned how confidence feels when it grows slowly, honestly from the inside out. I learned that softness isn't the opposite of strength. It's a different shape of it. Some mornings I still wake up scared. Some days the world still feels too loud, too sharp, too ready to judge. But now when I feel that fear, I don't run from it. I straighten my back. I lift my chin. And I remember who I am. Not because of magic. Not because of a prank. Not because someone tried to define me. But because I finally did. So if you're out there, feeling different, feeling hidden, feeling like you're playing a role just to survive, listen closely. You don't need a spell to change. You don't need permission to explore. And you don't need to be fearless to be brave. Sometimes all it takes is one moment where the mirror tells the truth, and you choose not to look away. I didn't become a princess when my body changed. I became one the moment I stopped bowing to fear. And if there's one thing I know now, one thing I'll carry with me no matter what happens next, it's this. The crown was never put on my head.